Dear learners and viewers, welcome to this program of the School of Business, Bangladesh Open University. This program has been designed and developed for the students of our MBA program. Students of BBA and PGDM program are expected to be benefited from this program. Today we are going to discuss communication in organizations. This topic you will find in lesson 1 and 2 of unit 11 of your book on Principles of Management. Upon completion of the discussion, you will be able to explain what is communication, what are the purposes of communication, what is the role of communication in management, what are the key stages in the communication process, what are the flows and forms of communication, what are the causes of communication problems. Now, we will address each of the above questions sequentially. Dear learners and viewers, communication is important in every walk of our lives, whether it is within a family, a club, a business organization. Transfer of information from one person to another is absolutely essential. It acts as a bridge to exchange facts, ideas, opinion, or emotion from one person to another for the purpose of creating mutual understanding and confidence. It is the means by which people are linked together in an organization to achieve a common goal. It is the means by which behavior is modified, information is made productive, change is effected, and goals are achieved. Indeed, group effort is impossible without communication because it integrates the activities and brings change. Dear learners, communication has different meanings to various authors. According to Newman and Summer, communication is an exchange of facts, ideas, opinion, or emotion by two or more persons. According to Weirich and Harold Conch, communication is the transfer of information from a sender to a receiver, with information being understood by the receiver. According to Brick and Go, communication is the exchange of information that is mutually understood. So, communication involves three important things. Number one, there must be two persons to be involved in communication. One is sender, another is receiver. There must have information to be communicated, and finally some efforts must be made to communicate information. Now we will turn to the purpose of communication in organization. In its broader sense, the purpose of communication is to effect change, to influence action for the purpose of creating welfare to the organization. Communication is essential for the internal functioning of any organization because it integrates the managerial functions. Communication is specially needed to set and disseminate the goals of an enterprise, develop plans for their achievement, organize human and other resources in the most effective and efficient way, lead, direct, motivate and create a climate in which people want to contribute and control performance. The figure graphically shows not only that communication facilitates the managerial functions of planning, organizing, staffing, leading and controlling to take place, but also that communication relates an organization to its external environment. It is through communication that managers become aware of the needs of customers, supply availability of suppliers, the claims of stockholders, the regulation of government, the concern of community and others. In fact, it is through communication that an organization can interact with its environment. Dear learners and viewers, now we will explain the role of communication in management. Communication is an indispensable part of every manager's job. Managerial roles, as observed by Henry Mintzberg, involves a great deal of communication. The interpersonal roles involves interacting with superior, subordinates, peers and outsiders. The managerial decisional roles require that they seek information for decision making and communicating those decisions to others. The informational roles of managers involve communication. They focus specially on acquiring and disseminating information to the concerned person. Now, we will turn to the communication process. A process is a series of interrelated steps taken in a sequential manner to achieve some goal. Communication process states the steps between the sender and the receiver that results in the transfer of a message through any medium and understanding of meaning of the message and response made in terms of feedback. Let us explain the specific steps involved in the communication process. Communication begins with the sender, who has a thought or an idea which is then encoded in a way that can be understood by both the sender and the receiver. Encoding is a task of converting the idea of the message into some transmittable form. It is the process of putting thought and idea of the message into symbolic form. This encoding might take the form of verbal words, gesture, facial expression, physical action or even artistic expression. After encoding, the message is transmitted through an appropriate channel that links the sender with the receiver. The message may be oral or written and it may be transmitted through a memorandum, a computer, a telephone, a telegram or a television. The receiver has to be ready to receive the message so that it can be decoded into thought. The next step in the process is decoding, in which the receiver converts the message into thought. Accurate communication can occur only when both the sender and the receiver attach the same or at least similar meaning to the symbols that compose the message. Communication is not completed unless it is understood. Understanding is in the mind of both the sender and the receiver. Unfortunately, communication is affected by noise, which may occur at any stage of the communication process and distort the message. To check the effectiveness of communication, a person must have feedback. One can never be sure whether or not a message has been effectively encoded, transmitted, decoded and understood until it is confirmed by feedback. Feedback is the response or reaction of the receiver to the original sender as to whether or not the message has been correctly interpreted and understood. Now, we will explain the flow of communication in organizations. In modern organization, communication flows in three directions: downward, upward and crosswise, that is horizontal and diagonal. Downward communication flows from executives at higher levels to those at lower levels in the management structure. Mostly authoritarian managers prefer this type of communication. Typical means of downward communication are office orders, policy instruction, office circulars, lectures, etc. Upward communication usually originates from a subordinate to his or her direct superior, then to that person's direct boss, and so on up through the hierarchy. Typical means for upward communication are counseling sessions, complaint systems, joint setting of objectives, suggestion systems, group meetings, etc. The two types of communication, downward and upward communication, also called vertical communication. Crosswise communication includes the horizontal flow of information among people on the same level in the organization, and the diagonal flow among persons at different levels who have no direct reporting relationship with one another. This kind of communication is used to speed up information flow, to coordinate efforts for the achievement of organizational objectives, and to improve understanding. A great deal of communication may happen to cut across the chain of command and avoid following organizational hierarchy. Communication may take in verbal or non-verbal forms. When communication is based on language, it is called verbal communication. Verbal form can again be categorized into oral and written. Non-verbal communication includes any communication exchange that does not use words or that uses verbalization to carry more meaning than the strict definition of the words themselves. Gesture, posture, facial expression, eye contacts are different forms of non-verbal communication. Written communication may take several forms such as notice, circular, newsletter, bulletins, and so on. These written forms have the advantage of providing a reference, records, and legal defense. Written communication can also promote uniformity in policy, procedures, and can reduce cost in some cases. Oral communication, a great deal of communication is done orally. It can occur in a manager's presentation to a large number of subordinates or in a face-to-face interactions with two or more persons. Oral communication makes possible speedy interactions with quick feedback. In a face-to-face interaction, people may ask questions and clarify points. Moreover, a meeting with superior may give the subordinates a feeling of prestige. Dear learners and viewers, now we will explain the causes of communication problem. Managers frequently cite communication problem as one of their most important problems. It can occur in the sender of the message, in the transmission of the message, in the receiver, and in the feedback. Now, we will explain some of the important problems in communication. Lack of planning. Lack of planning undermines communication. Too often people start talking and writing without first thinking, planning, and stating the purpose of the message. Poorly expressed message. Lack of clarity and precision due to poor chosen words, omissions, lack of coherence, poor organization, awkward sentence structure, unnecessary jargon can disrupt effective communication. Semantic distortion. Another barriers to effective communication is semantic distortion, which may arise when words have different meanings for different people. The word profit may have positive meaning for managers, owners, but less positive or even negative meaning for workers. Unclarified assumptions. Uncommunicated assumptions undermine message. If assumptions made in the message are not explicit, they may result in confusion and the loss of goodwill. International environment. Difference in languages, cultures and etiquette in the international environment makes communication even more difficult. Loss of transmission and poor retention. In a series of transmissions from one person to the next, the message becomes less and less accurate. Poor retention of information is another serious problem. Poor listening and premature evaluation. Inattentive listening and hasty judgment of what another person says can distort the whole communication process. Distrust, threats and fear. Distrust, threat and fear undermines communication. In a climate containing these forces, any message will be viewed with skepticism. Insufficient period for adjustment to change. The purpose of communication is to effect change that may seriously concern employees. Changes affect people in different ways, and it may take time to think through the full meaning of a message. Communication will be affected if sufficient time will not be allowed for people to adjust to its implications. Information overload. Information overload may also disrupt effective communication. If one is overwhelmed with too much information, he or she may disregard certain important information, may make error in processing it, may delay processing information, or simply escape from the task of communication. Dear learners and viewers, hope you have been benefited from today's discussions. If you have any problem, please go through the topic in your book and locate the problem that you will ask your tutor in the coming tutorial sessions. Thank you so much for patient sharing and watching the program.